Hello, fellow humans. My name is Dorothy Laxton, and this is Fostering Untethered Communication and Knowledge, an adventure in stimulating objective, critical thought, shining the spotlight through individual spectacles, putting it once again on the bigger picture and our parts in it. Searching for life beyond the lifestyles we North American urban dwellers have to choose to chase, encouraging all to participate in positive change. The notion of individual lifestyles really is a creation of the 20th century of public relations and marketing. This notion that we should be seeking ourselves over all. True, yes, it stems from Enlightenment, but this notion that our lives really is about our own gratification at the end of the day. My lifestyle, this is what I want to do. This is the way I want to live my life, and I don't really have to worry about anybody else, just as long as I'm not, quote unquote, harming anyone, right? I'm not personally doing any harm. But there's a lot of collateral damage that goes along with a lot of the stuff that we humans have been doing. So, yeah, we traded life for lifestyles. What happened in the 20th century with the marketing revolution, I call feminism a misogynist booby trap that was set on March 31st, 1929 by Edward Bernays with a stunt where he got a group of young women to hide cigarettes and at one point in unison all stop, pull out a cigarette, light it, and call it Torches of Freedom. Edward Bernays was Sigmund Freud's nephew and realized you could use psychology to manipulate people. His directive was to find ways to control democratic consumers, basically. It's what consumerism has been about since day one. It's controlling us. The man came straight out and said he had to rename propaganda because it was a dirty word because of the Nazis. And so he came up with the Council of Public Relations. And public relations and marketing were born. And literally the whole point is to manipulate you into buying whatever it is they're selling. So in the early days, we're looking at people's needs and real rights, like the right of women to vote, the right of people of color to be treated like human beings. These are good things that were great movements that just became nothing but activating our amygdalas instead of actually rationally talking about the fact that we're all human beings and we all deserve the same basic rights. And it became this war. And so the early years, they focused on needs and real rights. And in the 50s particularly, it was modeling different ways of gaining esteem. The ways of gaining esteem was being able to provide well for your family and provide a stable environment. And it went from needs-based sustainability, here we can build a good life, to grabbing us by our amygdalas and getting us to chase all of our yayas. And the sexual revolution really, 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 really has harmed our culture. Being sex positive and being sex obsessed are two completely different things. And our culture went from very conservative to sex obsessed overnight. And the result of that was things like what ended up happening to me, which you have children involved in this mix. And there's a reason why things were taboo. There's a reason why we had restrictions. There's a reason why we had obscenity laws, people. And that's because children do not have the brain wiring to responsibly deal with sex. Apparently, these days, adults do not have the brain wiring to responsibly deal with sex, because we made the quote-unquote consequences of sex, the actual realities of what sex is, and the beauties, some of the most beautiful things about sex, that intimate union that you can only really, it's the most intimate physical act you can commit with another human being. It's the most sacred physical act you can commit with a human being. And we've completely lost sight of that. We completely disregard it. That's junk. All that matters is how you get off. I hear about teachers who are apparently encouraging 6-year-olds to find places to masturbate. Children should not be encouraged to have orgasms before they hit puberty. That's setting up an addictive trap. That's building in a pattern that makes it impossible to have sex that isn't primarily to get off. That's not what sex is. Sex is a gift to us that we can enjoy a lot, and we need to learn how to do it respectfully, and we do not do that. And making it our identity, what? Okay, our physical sex is part of our identity because it says you can have a baby, you can't have a baby. That's pretty much the only relevance it should have. And yes, women are weaker than men, and traditionally men are more prone to violently victimize women and sexually victimize women. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen the other way. Actually, women very much do sexually manipulate and abuse men. We just don't call it that because supposedly men like it. And they don't. So they're just conditioned. This is all social constructs, people. And if they're social constructs, we can construct them and deconstruct them. That doesn't mean we can make up whatever poppycock we want. But we can decide that it doesn't matter, with the exception of a few realities. Males are generally stronger and bigger and more aggressive than females, generally. And that's hormone production. But I can be just as male as Mormon than I know sometimes in terms of those kinds of things. I can be, and I have been. But I've also been very shaped by the way our culture has portrayed male and female. We've got to stop judging ourselves against what the culture says and start allowing ourselves to be what we are. Thank you for listening. Narrative bullshit. It's propaganda.